Alrighty, guys, welcome back to the Identity Project. Today, I'm super excited. We're going to be diving into some nutrition knowledge bombs with somebody that I met that is actually basically halfway across the world. So I love social media for this reason, and I'm so excited to welcome my guest, Astrid Naranjo. How are you?
Hi, how are you? I'm so pleased to be here today. Um, so I don't know, I have no words to actually say what to start with, but thank you so much for having me here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I know we're on like completely different time frames. It's like 7 a.m. here for me, and I think it's, what did you say, 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. there for you?
10 p.m.?
Oh, 10 p.m. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
So everybody listening and watching here on the show, let's just give a round of applause for her for
Yay!
taking one for the team and doing a podcast at 10 p.m. My gosh.
No, my pleasure.
Hopefully you didn't have to drink coffee before this.
Yeah, it's funny though, because I usually more like alert at night, and
Okay.
in the morning for me it's like very sleepy, not very good for me. Actually, this is the best time for me where I'm more alert. In fact, when I was at uni, my best times for studying was just after 9 p.m. to be honest. So that's good. You
Hey,
got me at
well,
the right time.
yeah, I was gonna say, there you go. That works out. I'm the opposite. I'm like, for me, it's the morning. Like that's where all the creative energy is, and like once I get to like 9 or 10 p.m. at night, I'm going to sleep.
So funny. I think it depends on what do you usually, your kind of routine is. Usually, if I'm a late person, I usually train around 7, 8 p.m. Then I come home, I have dinner, and then I just muck around a bit, take Wapo, which is my dog, for a long walk. And then I come home around 10, 11 p.m., take a shower, go put to bed 12 p.m. So usually my routine gets quite active, starting from late during the day. I would usually wake up at 8 or 7:30, but I have a really good seven hours of sleep. So yeah, not too bad.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Hey, however you can get it in, right? I think those late nights remind me back to like college days because I definitely think I was studying more at night during
Mm.
college, university than I do now. But um, Astrid, I want to dive into your story and really allow others to kind of learn more about you. So I know you're accredited practicing dietitian, but before I even dive into your story or butcher it at all, I'd love for you to just present. So can you tell us a little bit more about you and what you do?
So currently, I am a accredited practicing dietitian here in Australia. Currently, I do work for a private hospital as a clinical dietitian in a rehab ward. So I look after patients that have been having like hip surgery, hip replacement, knee replacements, or like generally patients that have experienced falls or elderly. So I kind of look after their nutrition. And in addition to that, I look after a mental health ward as well. So patients with depression, with anxiety, alcohol dependence, just more around education, um, constructing the good habits, things like that. So that's basically my role currently. And in addition to that, I do a lot of social media, as you might see most often, and that's how we got connected, which is something that really, really got me a few months ago, and I decided to go that path as well. And private practice a little bit online, as well as one-on-one in person for the people that are around in the Gold Coast here in Australia. Before going to just coming to Australia, I used to live in Venezuela, South America, and I came here 6 years ago. So I did my master's here in Australia, but before that, I pretty much did my whole bachelor's degree in Venezuela is in nutrition dietetic practice. Then that lasted for about 6 years, all the degree, so quite a few years studying, then a little bit of practice. And after I graduated, I stayed in Venezuela for about 2 more years, where I did a lot of coaching, private practice, nutrition workshops, especially dedicated to not just general population, but also to fitness instructors, a lot of gyms, educating this fitness industry the right things about nutrition and how to deliver evidence-based nutrition to them as well. So that was my main focus back in Venezuela. I did see a lot of sports nutrition and athletes as well, because I was associated with a private practice company that used to be quite connected to athletes and sports nutrition. So I did quite a little bit of that as well, and that was amazing experience. And after that, I basically came back home to Australia. I studied for 1 year, like a good base English. So I hope it's not too bad.
No, it's good. It's good. Like I was telling you before this, I was like, you speak 2 languages and I can only speak 1. So some more power to you. But no, I think I can hear you perfectly fine. You're doing.
Oh, that's good. I was a bit scared about that. So, well, yes. So I did my basic English for 1 year. So just to get to the level of academic English to get into my master's degree. And then I did my master's. Was a bit challenging, to be honest, because obviously it's another system of education. It was my second language. It was completely in a second language and a very high level education. And it was pretty tough, but at the same time, I think very rewarding. The fact that you go to pretty much the last year of the master's is full of placements. You get into the practice of going to different hospitals where you actually do your deliver your practice. You get assessed, you get mentored, and you get pushed to a level where you actually need to be consider that you're ready to go for the industry, and you're gonna be enough to deliver adequate nutrition education and nutrition care to the patients that need it, especially for the clinical aspect of it, which is very critical that you have the level of understanding and knowledge and practice to look after these patients that sometimes can depend on one particular fact of coming from the dietary perspective. So that's pretty much my background. And currently, that's what I'm doing so far. After I graduated, straight away I got into the hospital work in my current job. So I've been there for about 1 year and a half since I finished my master's degree. And that's where I'm here now.
Wow.
Yeah, that's my story.
That's amazing. It's always so amazing to me hearing the stories of individuals that, I mean, essentially leave their country and go to pursue a degree. And for me, it's like I've only been out of the United States like twice, and it was to like Mexico both times. So like really 2 or 3 hours from here, right? But man, that must have been, I mean, going from you had to kind of leave family behind and pursue that yourself, and you were there all by yourself.
Yeah, well, I came with my boyfriend at the time that is currently my husband. We just got married 2 months ago.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. But basically, we came together. He did his master's as well here. He started 6 months before I came, and we both were doing studies at the same time too. I guess part of the reason we did study here on top of what we already had before coming here is to get the knowledge and the level of, I don't know, the same level that is required to perform as a professional here in Australia, and at the same time to be able to be aware of the systems that are around and be capable to deal with those problems in a different way that is dealt here in Australia. So it's just a way to also validate your CV and your background, your academic background.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I'm interested, how did you get into like nutrition in the first place? Like what made you want to study nutrition?
It will be a bit funny to hear my story, because when I decided to start nutrition, I was basically I started as a personal trainer. As usual, you get into the fitness industry, and part of that reason that I got interested in nutrition was that I just didn't want to lose weight, but I thought that I saw so many fitness instructors that they had so many clients, and they just gave just the same diet to everyone, and I always thought about, this is not right, this is not customized, and there must be another way. This is so restrictive. Obviously everyone's going to lose weight, but obviously I didn't have that knowledge back in the time. But now that I think about it, I think part of that reason why that I got driven by that inspiration is that I just really wanted to know more about it. I was just interested and excited about learning more and more about how to prepare a diet for someone that was diabetic, for example, or someone that needed to lose weight, and for myself as well. I always, as a woman, you always want to lose weight and be in shape, and especially where you're surrounded. I was 13 years old when I went to the gym for the first time, and I started lifting weights at 13, 14 years old. And that's where I started getting influenced by people around me. And obviously you get sucked into it, even if you don't think about it or you don't want to. That's how I actually got into nutrition. I was interested in also in physiotherapy, and I was like, oh, I like that as well. But when I saw the curriculum the pensum that you have to kind of know what are your subjects, it had physics. So no, physics not for me. So definitely prefer nutrition. So it has biochemistry, nutrition, human nutrition. I think that's the way I want to go. So once I started doing nutrition, I actually realized it was so much more than I thought. It was not just a diet. It was so deep, and it was so much more that it was actually quite overwhelming to know so much. Because the first semester you see biochemistry, which is so like completely the little things that you don't know about, just basics or generals of nutrition. You never hear about in the gym about the cycle of the cycle Krebs, or cycle. The Krebs cycle, or the metabolic pathways, or things like that. And when you see the molecules, and you have to study all the reactions and the enzymes and the hormones, you get so overwhelmed of how your body is so complex and amazing at the same time. And it's just so, I just got more in love with it. And you could see me in the first semester looking at the 8th semester at the subjects of human nutrition and diet, how to make diets and how to create spreadsheets, calculate macronutrients and the protein requirements, and design the diet distribution of the menus and all that sort of things. I was just so in love with my career from the first day. I can definitely say that.
Wow.
Yes.
That's amazing. I think it was a similar situation for me. I started personal training when I was 18 years old, and that's kind of what, ultimately led me into nutrition. But at one point, about halfway through undergrad, I kind of came to this two-way street of like, do I want to pursue nutrition or do I want to pursue physical therapy school? So
Mm.
yeah, very, very similar there. Was there anybody, in your family, immediate or extended, or friends that that you saw kind of growing up suffering and struggling with either their weight or maybe some type of medical conditions, and do you think that there was any inspiration there in terms of like wanting to help others?
I think part of the inspiration I got was from myself. I always, as I said before, I always wanted to find the right way to lose weight. But when I found the right spot where I started to be more in shape and was aligned with my training sessions, and I pretty much was doing everything right, but I was a bit disrupted in my mentality. And nowadays I can see that, but back in the days I was just not in the right mindset. I was restrictive with myself. I would take pills for if I had some fatty food or something like that. I would take a pill to avoid absorbing that. I was at the same time taking metformin, even if I wasn't insulin resistant, because I knew that would improve my insulin sensitivity and I would have better response to the carbohydrates. I was a bit like, would say, I don't know, just not on the right mindset. And I saw food as some things were completely not to be in the diet. And I saw things that the right or the good things, fat food, good foods. And I was kind of that mindset that nowadays I can see that I had a very restricted and rigid mindset. I was the all or nothing approach. I would eat things, or if I couldn't eat the whole pizza, for example, I would prefer not eat it at all. And I probably would spend 1 or 2 years and I would even touch a hamburger or a pizza or anything, just because I didn't want to fall in the temptation of having it and then binge on it. Sometimes I did fall into I lost my willpower and obviously binge on some things. And then I realized my relationship with food wasn't the best. And the more I got in shape and shredded, the more obsessed I was with my body and with the food. And I was even I was eating a lot, but a lot of things that always for me was kind of the right foods, but never allowed me to have that flexibility of, well, I really like a little bit of pizza, I would have it. I would never allow me to have things that I really liked it, just because I would just feel that I was doing the wrong thing. And I was going to feel already, if I ate something that was not in my diet, I would feel like I was already getting fat and already had cellulitis in my legs. So just straight away after eating it, especially things with sugar or anything that wasn't, or carbohydrates or really high fats. So that would be a very challenging time. Even a bit further on, where I actually got a bit more shredded, I started having a little bit of bulimia episodes. But I felt, okay, if I eat that I know I like it, I can just throw it up, and I just won't have any problems. But that was making it even worse. And my relationship with food was completely disconnected to be something stable and balanced. And I think once I arrived to I had to leave my country and had to start everything from the scratch. I think that's what was the point of shock for me and reflection, where I thought something is not right with myself. And that's where I went back and try to do things with the right foot, to be honest. And it was that bad that I lost my period for 3 years. That was a really strong sign that things weren't that great. So I probably had metabolic adaptation. I was chronically deprived was training 3 hours a day, mostly every day, not eating adequate food. So just very disordered eating and obsessed with my body, depriving myself. So I've been, in the past 6 years, my relationship with food has definitely grown, has definitely improved. And all the things, the more I know, the more I read, nowadays with this research that even if you eat more carbohydrates, as long as you're not overeating on them, you're fine. Or if you eat sugar, you're still fine with it, as long as you have a balance in your life. And the more inclusive you are with your body, with your diet, even is the less restriction you the more you eat, or you allow yourself to have things that you like, in an adequate proportion, obviously, the less likely you are to binge, the less likely you are to break your relationship with food at that point that you're no longer enjoying. Like I wouldn't have, not even a nice social environment. I wouldn't be able to go to a party or, I don't know, to a restaurant or something like that, because it was out of my diet. It was out of what I would do or what would I eat. So I always was out of the box, never felt included, because I excluded myself with my obsession for my body and my diet.
Wow.
So yeah, that's my story. A bit sad.
Well, thank you for being so transparent and sharing that. And I mean, obviously you're not alone in that. I think that there's a lot of people that struggle with that and struggle with their relationship with food and relationship with their body. I think that it's really interesting knowing that, even somebody that is studying nutrition and going to school and all of these different things, that they can still, go through this struggle as well. So over the last 6 years, I mean, what do you feel, other than the education and just learning more, what were the things that you had to do in your life to really start loving yourself again and start healing that relationship with food and your body?
I think one of the main things was that I think the first thing is that I fall into emotional depression, because when you come to a different country, you have to start from scratch. Everything is like nothing is built. Everything is like zero. So you gotta start from building up everything, every single thing you were doing back in your country. So for example, one of my main motivations to be very fit and shredded was that obviously I was a public image. I was a sports dietitian, and I was doing workshops in the fitness industry. So I had to look good. People would look at me and say, well, if she's a dietitian and she's a personal trainer and if she's not in shape, why would I follow her advice if she's not in shape? So it was kind of very controversial and shocking for me, because if you're not a role model, then people are not going to look at you with more respect. Well, people might think, well, perhaps you should be on a diet for yourself first, lose weight yourself, and then you tell me or you give me advice. But if you're not in shape, probably, I don't know if you know what are you actually talking about. So it was a lot of pressure in that side. So when I came here, because I had to start from zero, it's like, okay, I don't have that pressure anymore. Like I'm no one here. I'm like no one. So why would I bother to be in shape? Or like there wasn't that pressure anymore. So I realized that something in me was pushing me to, that wasn't just because of myself, but because I wanted to be a role model. It was kind of an accountability sort of thing that was pushing me to those extremes, to want to be someone that wouldn't be sustainable over time just because it was someone that I wasn't. I was being not myself. I just was trying to impress other people, trying to fit in the fitness industry, as everyone looks good, so I have to look good as well to fit into that circle of people. So once I came to Australia, I felt, well, now I don't fit in anywhere, because I'm just alone. I don't have to. I have no longer that influence. I'm not longer an influencer like I used to be. So I have to start from scratch. So you know what? I'm just going to relax a bit, and I think because I was so restrictive for so long that I kind of went to the other side of the pendulum. So when too flexible and when just too relaxed, I was eating too much and obviously gained weight. I was not training that good. I wasn't motivated. In addition to obviously my emotional status, I was depressed, had a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, studying, trying to go to uni, all the different things going on. That was a kind of a shock that had me to reflect and sit down and think about, hang on, something has been happening that is now allowing myself to discover me and knowing what's going on. So I think that was my main driver, that I didn't have to be someone else. I didn't have to fit in a circle where I wasn't longer part of it. And I decided to build my new me with a better relationship with food, starting from, you know what, I think educating myself again, because you probably know a lot of nutrition, but you don't apply the information you know to yourself. You apply it to everyone else, but you don't apply it to yourself. And I think that's a very common to see, even in people that, like, I don't know, you might see beauticians that they don't look after themselves, but they look after other people, or physiotherapists that they are injured themselves, but they don't look after themselves, but they look after other ones. So it's pretty much the same. I knew what I had to do, but I just was reluctant to do it, just because I had something in my head that was telling me, you know what, I know you could eat that. It's not going to make you fat, but you better not eat it. So it was it's like when you have an eating disorder, two little things saying, one, a good angel and the bad angel. And it's kind of your good knowledge and your rebel part of you that says, oh, you know what? I know you know, but I want you to do the opposite. So yeah, this is actually the main thing that actually made me discover myself, build again my relationship with food. And as I said, the more I discovered and learned, oh, you can actually eat sugar, and sugar is not going to make you fat as long as you maintain a caloric deficit and you eat a lot of protein and you move. And since then, the more I've learned, and all these myths that have been around this diet culture, the dieting, that you have to restrict calories, like Beyonce, that says, oh, no carbs, no dairy, no cheese, no bread, no potatoes, nothing, because that's the only way you can lose weight. So that was my extreme mindset, that I had to go that extreme to be able to achieve my goals. So you know what? You no longer need to do that, as long as you find what works for you, what is sustainable for you, and makes you be happy, have a quality of life, a social life, and allows you to be a person you want to be, and you can achieve good physical results without going to extremes. Just take your time, be patient, and things will work for you, for your behalf, for your good. But it's just that there are not shortcuts. There are not ways to go around it to be miracles. Or so that's the main thing. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And it's something I'm sure, it doesn't just go away. I think it's something that I'm sure you maybe still struggle with in a sense, maybe not to the degree, but it's like this, it's really like a lifelong journey of having, like you said, the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other, and they're both talking to you there. But yeah, the conversation that we have with ourselves is so incredibly important. The conversation, if we're always feeding ourselves these negative thoughts all the time, then that's what manifests, and it's just like, I know it sounds like, whatever, but it's like that positive self-talk, it really is extremely important. And the influences around you, the environment around you, like, it matters. It's like the saying of the 5 people you're around most, influence you or whatever. And it's like, it's so true. And we live in this world of like information overload in a sense, right? Where, I'm the same way. I feel like the more and more and more I learn about nutrition, the more and more and more I get confused, basically. It's like there's so much, and it's like it can be as simple as you want it to be, or it can be as complex as you decide to go down the rabbit hole to make it,
Yeah. And in fact, what are you saying? It makes a lot of sense to me, because the more I know, and the more I read, and the more I learn, I actually have published a lot of posts about it, the more freedom I feel, because I'm no longer attached to a thought that something is bad, or something is going to make everything that I've built is going to pull it apart. So the more I learn, it's actually just more liberating for myself, and knowing that I can have a little bit of chocolate and I'm no longer in my head. Like, if I eat a piece of chocolate, I'm no longer feeling like it's going straight to my thighs or getting a little bit of cellulite. And I was feeling that stressed out at that time, that it was just my mental stress that would make me feel absolutely uncomfortable. But now it's like, you know what? I can have that, but I'll just have a little bit. And one of the things I've been doing, and I've been applying for all these years, is something that I call, you might have heard of it, is mindful eating. Mm-hmm. Have you heard about that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So mindful eating and intuitive eating, because it's something that I usually discovered. When I discovered it, I was like, oh, I can taste it. I can take my time, slow down, take the pleasure of it, just feel how's the texture, the smells, how it tastes like. And you realize that the first few bites are just amazingly pleasurable. But after a while, you no longer feel like you're actually getting any pleasure out of it. So it's like, oh, I actually don't want anymore, because if I was looking for a little bit of pleasure, then that's it. I got all the pleasure I wanted for the first few bites, so I don't have to eat the whole bag to keep eating it. Because the problem with nowadays is that people emotionally eat, and they can eat and eat, and they don't even think about it. They are not even tasting the food. They just automatically putting the food in the mouth and just acting like robots. But it's not really something that they need to eat. Like, are you hungry? Are you really feeling that you need to eat all the whole packet to feel better? So I've come to the point where if hunger is not the problem, then food is not the solution. So I just said, just like that. Am I stressed? Am I bored? What is, like, I'm trying to be more analytic and reflect. What are my thoughts, or what are the things that are going on myself before I am going to take a food and put it in my mouth? So I feel like, okay, I am a bit stressed, or I'm a bit hungry. Do I want to really eat and go out of what my current diet is? Or if I want to have a little bit, then that's okay. So I allow myself to have it. But you know what? I'm not going to have the whole packet. I'm just going to have this amount, this a little bit, and that's it. So I allow myself to have it. Things I wouldn't do before. I just wouldn't eat it at all. But now I would say, okay, if I definitely want it, I will have it. But just have a little bit. I taste it, I enjoy it, I smell it, and I feel satisfied, and try to do something else that is not food related. So usually I would play with my dog, or go for a long walk, or listen to podcasts, or create a new post in social media, something that is just going to be different from food, to keep my head in another place that is not food related.
Yeah, I love that. You know, I think it's self-awareness, right? And that could be, you know, pertaining to food in this situation, or it could be somebody that maybe struggles with alcohol, or, you know, whatever addiction it is. It's like, you know, addiction is addiction, you know, and I think, like, when we can create more self-awareness in our own life, that is what ultimately prevents self-sabotage, you know? And of course, it still happens to us and all of these things. But again, it's just, how do we educate ourselves more and more? And how do we equip ourselves with the tools? Like, this is a tool, mindful eating, intuitive eating, it's just a tool, right? To help us with the struggles that we're having. So, you know, what are, I'm interested, what are some of, you know, obviously I know you kind of work in the clinical setting, but with your online practice, what are, you know, are you getting some of these similar situations coming to you? What is kind of the population that you find yourself attracting the most?
I do find a wide variety of patients that some people might be just looking for some coaching, some accountability. Currently, I've been getting people that they know how to count the macros. They know basics of nutrition. They know they train. They do quite a bit of macro tracking, and like they know a few things about that, but they just want someone else to keep them accountable. Other times I've had a lot of people that perhaps they have an additional condition, medical condition, like a diabetes or PCOS, or like insulin resistance or chronic heart disease, anything that is pretty much health related, and then something associated with weight loss. So they need to lose weight, and therefore if they lose weight, obviously all the blood work, health markers will improve. So my work has been pretty much in weight loss management, education around diabetes, carbohydrate counting for those that really benefit from having a good plan with carbohydrates. So I have been having patients that also, like, they are perfectly healthy, but they perhaps fitness in the fitness, so they just want to get shredded or build muscle, or they are more in the sports, into sports, so they play rugby, so they want to perform better, or they are runners, or go into marathons or things like that. So it's very wide, the population I see, and it tends to vary, but the most common one I see would be women's health, and also weight loss management at any population, and fitness.
Got it. So
Yeah.
in pertaining to women's health, I know you mentioned PCOS. Are you seeing, and I think that's something that, we're seeing a lot. Are you seeing quite a bit of thyroid conditions as well, or?
Not so much thyroid conditions, but more so related to the condition or the syndrome of the polycystic ovarian syndrome, that usually this sort of population tends to gain weight, or have difficulties losing weight, or having insulin resistance, which is characteristic of this syndrome. So by improving the lifestyle and habits, you can help these patients quite a lot. And I'm actually writing an article for Alan Aragon,
Yeah.
about women's health. Don't tell him. But I'm going to write one about PCOS, and that's all about myth busting as well, because I've seen a lot of people saying, well, if you have PCOS, you better go on keto diet because carbs are not good for you, or you have to go gluten-free, dairy-free. So it's all this myth, and it's just makes me so angry, because there's no evidence that says that that's going to make a difference. Some people might go better with some of these changes, but it doesn't imply that it's going to shift completely the response. Like the main evidence is, if they exercise and they lose weight, regardless of the type of diet, allowing themselves to be normal, they can still improve their insulin resistance. Obviously, they will get some support from the endocrinologist. They might have an extra support with some medications, but the main thing is that from the diet perspective and lifestyle, you don't have to cut anything from your diet unless you're allergic to it or you have intolerance. But there's not sufficient evidence to say that if you cut dairy, you will get rid of the acne, for example. Or if you go gluten-free or keto diet, or on a keto diet, you're going to improve your insulin resistance. Obviously, you won't have to deal with the carbohydrates, but if you go still on a high caloric intake, you don't lose weight, the insulin resistance is not going to go down anyway. So that's when it becomes a bit tricky, and it's something that I really want to explore and explain a lot better in that article.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for that. I'm definitely looking forward to that. Are you on the topic of PCOS here? Are you like, what are maybe some of the, because I feel like there's a lot of, women out there that maybe don't know that they have it, or maybe they got told that they did, but they don't actually. So what are maybe some of the symptoms that you're seeing with people coming to you with PCOS? And then what are you finding? I mean, obviously you mentioned, the weight loss, obviously, but is there anything else that you're doing maybe in reference to stress management or anything like that to kind of help them, naturally remedy these symptoms in a sense?
So basically, when you have a patient like this, they have it's very individual, the symptoms they might experience. Some patients won't have that much of symptoms. They just might have tendency to gain weight. Some others might just have some insulin resistance. Some patients won't have the presence of insulin resistance in their condition. So it is very individual, the response and the symptomatology from it. Generally, a patient that has insulin resistance and is overweight, they will probably experience acne, for example, a bit of a stress, obviously, problems with their sleep cycles, their response to the stress is obviously disrupted, or they're a bit more volatile. They will just get anger or then relaxed, similar to when you have menopause. Menopause is very similar in terms of, well, you have all your estrogen, progesterone, LH, so all your female hormones are all over the place, a bit disrupted. So there's obviously something impacting the way you feel. Your mood is affected. You have more tendency to be depressed, to get more emotional disruption or sensitivity from it. So there's a lot of different things that can be happening in one person, but it's very individual, the response. And what can you do for that? It will depend on their lifestyle and habits. You adapt the strategies to each person, but basically you want to look at stress management, so specific strategies to manage the stress, what is affecting you currently, what is making you stressed out, is it your relationships okay, what are the things that are going on in your life that we can actually do something about it. In addition to that, we have the diet, which is something very, very basic and fundamental to fix. Obviously, taking in consideration the preferences, the things that they like, and try to go around their lifestyle, just to don't make a huge change or something that is not sustainable over time. And you want to include exercise. If the person is not active, obviously you want to increase their physical activity, especially with the resistance training, because it's just the exercise and resistance training is automatically will increase the insulin sensitivity, and therefore the androgenism, all the androgens, which is a particular symptom and sign, of this condition, will decrease once the insulin goes down as well. So a bit of everything. You want to look at that as a pyramid, and in the base you have sleep and stress management, you have diet to ensure weight loss and healthy weight, and then on top of it you have everything that has to do with mood and resistance training and exercise. So you want to look at everything, and in addition to that, you will have how much support do you have? Do you have a good support around you that can just give you that extra time for, I don't know, just talk with someone or get your concerns allocated or settled if you're stressed, or if you need to communicate with someone that can understand what are you going through. So some counseling is important. It's a good team around that person is definitely something important, depending on what are the symptoms and the things that are going on in their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I completely agree. You know, one thing that kind of sparked my interest there was, you know, when we talk about controlling the stressors, especially in relative to PCOS, you know, CrossFit and spin classes and high intensity exercise is obviously a really popular thing. Have you found that some individuals that are doing high intensity exercise on a daily basis that have PCOS, maybe that's causing, too much stress on the body?
Yeah, well, I could say that definitely, even for someone that doesn't have PCOS, an excess of physical activity, obviously, when you get to a point where it's too much, it will be a chronic cortisol elevated for a long time, and you're not getting enough. If you're not getting enough sleep, you're not getting enough recovery. Then that's obviously going to be an added stress to whatever else is going on. So it is definitely an extra factor. So you gotta consider a really good program for your exercise. Same as your diet. You need to have a structure. You want to have an ideal plan for what you really need to achieve with your physical activity, and understand whether you are beginner, intermediate, or advanced trainee. You want to get what is appropriate for you. I was actually listening quite a few minutes ago about what's the maximal recoverable volume and the minimal effective volume that you need to use. So it's that range where you find that like a sweet spot, or a sweet amount of volume you need to actually do to achieve whatever you want to achieve, and don't go just like junk volume of stuff that you might just get yourself worse, or just can't get to overtraining, or when it's not enough. So you don't get the benefits of the exercise that you're looking for. In PCOS would be, you wouldn't get that insulin sensitivity, that stimulus that will help to achieve that weight loss and that sensitivity. So it is all according to a good program, individualized for that person, according to their level and what they want to achieve, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, I think it's interesting. It's like, I like to use an example with clients of basically breaking down, sympathetic stressors and parasympathetic stressors, and kind of, drawing a T-chart, if you will, right? It's funny with workouts, because it's like a lot of the times people will put workouts under the category of stress relief. And it's like, sure, maybe it is, but it's also a stressor on your body. And, and so we have to create that awareness as to like, what are all the things in our life that are stressing us out? And what are all the things in our life that are, relaxing us, right? That fight or flight versus like the rest and digest. So yeah, again, I think a lot of these things go back to the self-awareness component, right? And like, maybe it's a coach, or maybe you're able to do it in your own life, but creating that awareness and getting that 10,000 foot view, going back to your story, it's like, if I was, working with a coach and I lost my menstrual cycle for 3 years, like my coach would red flag that and educate me and be like, hey, like that's a problem, but it's like, what we don't know, we don't know. Right. And even sometimes when we do know, we ignore it because we have some other goal or aspiration. So I think the self-awareness piece is huge. And I also think it's interesting, we can sit here and talk about PCOS and thyroid issues and insulin resistance and all these different things, but it's almost like it all comes back to like step one, which is let's look at nutrition, lifestyle, exercise habits, right? Seeing how you're actually living your life and getting you living a healthier life. And then from there might be more specifics to dive into, but yeah, habits. It's simple. It's not sexy, but it's true,
Yeah, I actually have a very interesting thing to say about habits. I recently found a framework that talks about how there are different personalities that respond differently for expectations. I don't know if you heard about that Gretchen-Rubin framework.
Yeah.
Have you heard about that?
Yeah.
I will just quickly explain it. So there are 4 categories of people or personalities that respond differently depending on the expectations. So we talk about expectations, external and internal expectations, as things that someone is expecting for us to do something, or we expecting to do something for ourselves. So there are these 4 categories. So the first category is the upholders, that will respond readily to external or internal expectations alike. So they are the ones that if you want to do something, they will try to get things done. They are completely reliable. They get self-motivated. They don't need accountability, external accountability. They just get things done. And I actually looking for, what am I doing wrong? Is that rules beyond the rules? They try to be really rigid, and the bad thing about them is that if something goes wrong or something is outside the rules, they feel like they breaking the rules, or they just go crazy about it. We have the other extreme, or on the other hand, we have the questioners. So the questioners are the ones that I definitely am a questioner, because it's like I can respond to really well to anything that is expected from me, as long as I understand and it makes sense to me. If it doesn't make sense, I just don't do it. So I will question, like, you should wake up at 5 a.m. every morning. Why? Why do I have to do it? So if you give me a good reason why I have to wake up, I will definitely do it. But if you don't, then why should I bother? So, and it's actually pretty interesting that most of the people linger between questioners and the next one that I'm going to talk about, which is obligers. And obligers are the ones that usually tend to struggle with internal expectations, but they will they will readily respond well to external expectations. So these ones, they really struggle to, let's say, if someone was at school before and they were in a running team, they would wake up at 5 a.m. because they had someone else to go with, to respond to. They had a coach. They had someone that was expecting from them to do something. But now if they adults and they are by themselves, they wouldn't do that anymore. They don't have to wake up at 5 a.m. so they just don't exercise anymore. So the good thing about these people is that you got the best strategy is that you got to identify whether they are obligers, and if they have their personality, they just need external accountability and they will do anything for you. If you ask them, I want you to have this ready for tomorrow, they will definitely make the best they can to do it. But if they put a date in their calendar or something they have to get done, they probably won't do it because there's nothing that will push them to do it. So that's these 2 categories, the questioners and obligers, tend to be quite common. And the last one is the rebels. So rebels is an interesting one because they just do whatever they want to do, whenever they want to do, and just if it makes sense, but they will be more likely to do something just by the sense of freedom or because they choose to do it, not just because you tell them to do it. So it's a bit funny because I tend to linger between questioner and rebel. Like, but probably I'm between these 2. But what I want to get across with these 4 categories is that if you identify these personalities, this type of personalities, you're actually able to understand how do you act and how can things work better for you in terms of habit formations. So if you're an obliger, you know that for you to create habits that are going to be sustainable, you need to create strategies that will you need to get external accountability to do it. So that, let's say, well, if I want to put an exercise as a routine for me every day, but I struggle to do it by myself, I need to find a partner that is going to do that training with me. And I'm definitely going to do it because someone else is expecting and waiting for me to go with them. If I'm a questioner, they probably need to understand the reasons why I need to exercise. Oh, well, if I have PCOS, and I understand that by exercising on a regular basis, at least 4 times a week, with the resistance training, that's going to help me with my insulin sensitivity, going to help me with my blood markers, it's going to help me to feel better. Oh, that makes sense. Then I will do it because I understand the whys behind that. Or if I'm an upholder, you just tell me to do it, and I will just do it straight away. So that's the way you do it. So I just found this framework quite interesting. I will probably post soon about it a bit more in depth, but I just find it fascinating. And actually, there's a quiz on everything just to find out what personality you are.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of that, as well as looking into, there's a whole bunch of different personality type quizzes. There's like the Colby Index, which is another test and quiz. And then even looking into love languages, I think is really interesting because, again, it's like through the assessment process of working with a client, well, the more that we can figure out about them in that first month, the more rapport that we can build with them, the more that we can get them to know that, we understand kind of the way they tick and what works best for them. Like, it's invaluable because, that could be the difference in, having success with a client and not having success. A lot of the times we just think to ourselves, oh, I just resonate with that person or whatever. But it's like, when we have these different types of people coming to us, and if we can use tools like this to help us better understand kind of the psychology of all of this, like, it makes us better as coaches, and I've become so interested in kind of the mindset, the psychology of, habit change, behavior change, like, nutrition. It's funny. We go to school for nutrition and we learn so much about nutrition, but I feel like after that, we start diving into, like, especially as an entrepreneur, like the business and the marketing and the psychological aspects. And it's just funny how much kind of the nutrition coaching evolves into all of these other things.
Yes, psychology is a big part of everything. We're driven by emotions, and like everything that sometimes, especially related to nutrition, sometimes the things we do nowadays perhaps are a consequence from a past, something we lived in the past. And usually people with eating disorders have the roots of the cause of the problem coming from their childhood. So understanding that the psychology of eating has a very deep connection to the cause and the root of the problem, you can dig in and release that cause and make the person aware that that was the cause of it, and they can get rid of the main attachment or whatever was causing the disorder, because they didn't know what was the cause. But once they discover what was the cause, they feel freedom because they can kind of let it go and move on, or understand why, oh, that's why I've been doing this way. So by letting it go, I think exposing it again to the present and realizing that there was a problem, they understand and they just change completely. So sometimes binge eating can be or anorexics or bulimia, or all of these eating disorders can just be a reflect of the past, and it's a way to kind of mitigate or cope, coping mechanisms we use to deal with that, even if we don't feel or don't think about it, but it's something that is just underneath, and we need to kind of let it go and expose it to understand the whys behind that.
Yeah.
So psychology is definitely something that is very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of, information out there, around trauma. And, that was really the reason why I asked you about kind of the whole childhood thing of like, was there something that happened with you growing up that led to, kind of that disordered eating later on? But, sometimes it's not childhood trauma, or sometimes it's just your influence, like in your situation. So, but yeah, I definitely think it is something to be aware of. And I think, a lot of people, when we go through something like that, we end up just kind of suppressing it and, maybe later addressing it later in life and not actually going through the process of, essentially just being able to move forward from what you've experienced. A lot of times we just suppress it and try to forget about it or whatever, but we don't actually process it and do what it takes to be able to fully kind of move forward. So yeah, I completely agree. Well, hey, I could probably sit here and talk to you all day long and keep asking you questions, but I definitely want to respect your time. I know we've kind of already gone over a little hour here, but where can everybody find you at on social media? And that way they can reach out to you and be able to ask questions and connect with you.
I am in anti-diet dietitian on Instagram, or at Astrid Naranjo on Twitter. This is basically the only two places I am lingering around and trying to be consistent with them. So find them there, or just send me an email that you can find in my social media as well. So all good.
Awesome. Awesome. I love the name, anti-diet dietitian, right? That's like my favorite. I always joke over here. It's like hashtag diets suck.
It's funny, but it will be another long story. So it's basically that I just don't believe in fat diets, but I think diet is such a big word, and it just includes so much. It's our habits, it's what we eat. So I have to explain every time that anti-diet dietitian is more so to these crazy fads, these things that are just nonsense, that are just ruining and making harm rather than good. So that's the main. I always have to explain why did I choose that, because it's a bit confusing. Well, you dietitian, but you're anti-diet, but you're kind of weird. So I need to explain it.
Hey, I totally understand. I like it. I always say, I think one of our jobs as, nutrition coaches, dietitians, whatever, it's like we're on this mission of constantly having to filter out the BS in the nutrition industry. We're constantly having to filter out the Beyoncés and the J-Los of the nutrition industry.
Oh, yes.
So, I love everything that you're doing, and thank you, for being able to educate others and pay it forward, because, obviously you have a powerful story and struggles that you've gone through, like everyone else, but I think it's really cool to be able to, pay it forward. So thank you for everything that you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me. Again, thank you for going through with me with all my story and listen to it and getting some feedback from you as well. It's nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoyed it. Well, again, Astrid, thank you so much for taking the time, and everybody that watched or listened today, y'all go check her out. She's putting out a lot of awesome content on Instagram.
All right. Thank you for having me.